Chapter 51. As soon as he arrived at the dormitory door, Chu Nan heard wild laughter coming from inside. "Hey, Dongfang, what are you doing? Why are you laughing so hard?" Chu Nan pushed open the door and looked at Dongfang, who was holding his stomach and laughing wildly in his seat. "Ha, Chu Nan, you're back. Come, quickly take a look. I'm dying of laughter." Dongfang pointed at the virtual screen in front of him with an overjoyed expression. Chu Nan curiously walked over and glanced at the virtual screen. He immediately spat out a mouthful of water. Damn, who did this? On the virtual screen was a huge character projection. This person wore a green cap with a shiny red star in the middle. He was wearing a military uniform that was also green in color and had an extremely ancient and simple style. Under his feet was a pair of dark green, round, and low-heel canvas shoes. He held a torch high in his right hand and his left hand pointed forward. He put on a firm appearance, giving people the feeling that he was so uncool. However, the important thing was that this person's face was Chu Nan's. Dongfang glanced at the extremely exciting expression on Chu Nan's face and laughed wildly again. "Haha, Chu Nan, do you want to get a set of such clothes to participate in the competition? I guarantee that you'll be famous. Get lost." Chu Nan glared at Dongfang in anger and operated the virtual screen. He discovered that Dongfang was logging into an online forum. This character projection came from the most popular post on this forum. The reason why this figure's profile was Chu Nan was completely because Dongfang had changed his profile to Chu Nan. "Fight for the honor of the Earth Federation?" Chu Nan looked at the title of this post in shock. "What's this nonsense? You still don't know?" Dongfang was a little surprised before realizing, "Oh, right. You've become a martial arts fanatic these few days. I'm afraid you haven't cared about this information at all. I'm not as free as you." Chu Nan rolled his eyes at him. "Tell me, what's going on?" "It's related to the martial arts competition." Dongfang curled his lips. "You know that there's a program called Focus News on the Federation's Information Martial Arts World Channel, right?" "Yes, of course. What's wrong?" "In the past 2 days, the Focus News program has been paying attention to this West Cloud Planet's martial artist competition. Then, a guest on the program produced a set of data today, showing that after the first 3 rounds of the competition, a large number of our Earth Federation participating martial artists have been eliminated. I feel that it's too shameful." "And then, didn't they carry out 3 rounds of competition today?" "As soon as the competition ended, someone deliberately made a set of statistics. Can you guess the results?" Chu Nan shook his head and knew that this number was probably not good. As expected, Dongfang sighed and said, "The data shows that after the 6 rounds of competition, among the remaining participants in the West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition, the Earth Federation's martial artists only account for 23.16%. As for the groups below the age of 20 that you participated in, they were even worse. They accounted for less than 17%. Is it that miserable?" Chu Nan did not believe it. This competition was organized by West Cloud Planet. Even if martial artists from other countries participated, they should be far inferior to the Earth Federation. How could there be only so many participating martial artists left after 6 rounds? It's that miserable. Dongfang nodded. Moreover, there are also people who have analyzed the next battle and the previous battles. They have concluded that if the 3 rounds of the competition end tomorrow, the ratio of participating martial artists in the Earth Federation will probably decrease again. It might even reach a shocking extent. "So, they came up with such a title?" Chu Nan pointed at the virtual screen. "That's right. To fight for the honor of our Earth Federation." Dongfang glanced at the figure projection and was still overjoyed. "I have to say that the guy who created this figure projection is really a genius. He can actually find a classic Chinese image from more than 1,000 years ago to replicate. It must be true love." At this point, Dongfang paused and glanced at Chu Nan. "Hey, Chu Nan, are you confident in your competition tomorrow? Can you win?" "How can I know that if I haven't fought yet?" Chu Nan shrugged. "However, if you're also eliminated, not to mention nonsense like fighting for the honor of the Federation, you won't be able to enter the finals like this, let alone fulfill your promise to Xing Yuanlin." Dongfang's expression had a trace of worry. "I can only say that I'll do my best. I can't control other things." Chu Nan sighed. This West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition had actually attracted so many experts to participate, and among them were many young experts from other countries. As a result, the difficulty of winning the championship was much higher than he had originally imagined. Chu Nan was now confident that he could defeat low-level internal breath martial artists in normal battles, but it would be difficult for him to defeat high-level internal breath martial artists. Of course, this was not a reason to give up. Chu Nan thought for a moment and ignored Dongfang. He lay on the bed and connected to the data terminal of Martial Soul and logged in. After logging in, he habitually opened the information panel and saw another friend request. Needless to say, it was from the player, Free Flower Pistol. Every time they sent a friend request, they would add another message. This time was no exception. Coward, I won't be able to play the game for a long time in 2 days. If you don't add me as a friend, you won't have a chance anymore. If it was said that Chu Nan felt very fed up when he first saw this information, he was already used to it now. When he saw this message, Chu Nan could not help but laugh. What did it have to do with him if this guy could not play the game for a long time? Why did he make it sound like it was a huge loss not to add him as a friend? Shaking his head, he was about to reject the friend request and delete this message when his heart suddenly softened. He thought for a moment and replied with a message while rejecting the friend request. Who exactly are you? Why do you have to add me as a friend? After doing this, Chu Nan officially entered the game. However, he did not activate the random match as usual and chose the simulation training room. A moment later, he appeared in a wide and empty room. Standing in front of him was an opponent that, although his appearance was very realistic, it was still obvious at a glance that he was a simulated opponent. This was a special service provided by the Martial Soul game. It could allow martial artists to simulate battles in the simulation training room to practice their martial techniques. With the powerful technology level of the Noctem Chamber of Commerce, the Martial Soul Data Access Terminal could scan the specific physical data of the players in detail. Therefore, it could perfectly simulate the player's personal situation into the game and carry out battles that were almost equivalent to reality. What Chu Nan wanted to do now was to test his idea. Although that unknown senior had warned Chu Nan earlier out of kindness, he did not plan to completely agree with the senior's opinion. This was not the fault of that unknown senior because he did not know that Chu Nan had a super powerful data ability and could understand all the relevant data in his body in a very precise manner. Therefore, the problem of accidentally injuring himself in his cultivation did not exist for him. Most importantly, from the current situation, there might be opponents stronger than ordinary low-level internal breath martial artists in the martial arts competition. If he could not obtain any further advancement, he might really not even be able to enter the finals, let alone fulfill his promise to Xing Yuanlin and obtain Mu Yutan's recommendation qualifications. There was another important reason why Chu Nan chose to enter the virtual training room of Martial Soul to practice. Martial artists originally existed to surpass the limits of the human flesh body. Chapter 52. Elvie walked into the bedroom softly and threw her body heavily on the wide bed. She lay down with her face facing down, looking lazy and unwilling to move. After a while, a muffled sigh sounded from the bed. Elvie rolled over and lay back, her exquisite little face filled with melancholy that did not match her age. Today was the 25th of June on Earth. There was less than a week until the end of this semester. Tonight, her classmates held a graduation party. She was chatting with a few good friends at the party. When she thought of how they were going to go their separate ways after graduation, she could not help but cry. Now, there was still a trace of tears at the corner of her eyes, which showed how exaggerated her crying was. How good would it be if everyone was still on planet Macaw? Then, even if one was in the North Pole and the other was in the South Pole, they would at most need half a day to meet. Thinking of how her best friend, Riley, had said at the gala that she was going to study in the United States of Meleta, which was more than 700 light-years away from planet Macaw, Elvie could not help but complain. However, she knew that this was impossible. Ever since it was discovered by the civilian exploration fleet of the Declan Empire more than 700 years ago, the Earth Federation had quickly jumped into the era of the Great Galaxy. It had long passed the backward stage of still remaining as a single planet in the galaxy. Now, the people of the Earth Federation were already accustomed to leaving the planet they lived on and heading for dozens of light-years, hundreds, or even thousands of light-years away. It was actually normal for someone like Riley to study in the United States of Meleta more than 700 light-years away. After all, compared to an ancient country in the Milky Way like the United States of Meleta, the Earth Federation was undoubtedly still a rookie. If one could study there, they could learn a lot of advanced knowledge. It would be extremely helpful to their future work in life. If not for Elvie's special family situation, she might have been sent to an advanced country outside the Earth Federation to study after graduation. She was no different from Riley. Seriously, even if you want to study abroad, can't you wait until I finish high school before going out? Elvie mumbled and flipped over. She saw the game data of Martial Soul on the table beside her bed in the access terminal. She thought for a moment and jumped up. Fortunately, there's the Milky Way network. Otherwise, if I want to see them in the future, I can only wait for their holidays. Thinking of this, a trace of anger appeared on Elvie's small face as she waved her fists forcefully. Humph! It's all that damned guy's fault for preventing me from obtaining 30 consecutive wins. Otherwise, I could properly show off in front of them tonight. LV angrily entered Martial Soul. As soon as she logged in, she saw an additional message in the system notification bar. This coward rejected me again. As expected, the additional message was from Virgin 001 rejecting LV's friend request. However, this time, it was different from the previous few times. There was also a message behind the rejection. Seeing this, LV's eyes lit up. Haha, coward, you're finally willing to answer me. Boom. Seeing that the training dummy in front of him had been shattered by his punch, Chu Nan withdrew his fist and waved his hand. Martial Soul could perfectly simulate the physical condition of the human body and also perfectly simulate the specific physical changes in battle. Coupled with Chu Nan's powerful data ability, it could allow him to abnormally understand the various aspects of his body. In this punch just now, he had undoubtedly successfully mobilized his internal breath. Moreover, the internal breath contained in it was even thicker than when he was sparring with that unknown senior. This was one of the results of his training after entering Martial Soul. Through his in-depth communication with that unknown senior, Chu Nan knew that if he wanted to mobilize his internal breath freely in battle, he had to complement a circulation method. Chu Nan did not have any ready-made solutions to this. When Unshaken left behind the 9 revolutions technique back then, he only released the 1st to 7th level internal breath cultivation method. He did not include any other related cultivation methods, nor was there any circulation method given. As for the 8th and 9th levels, even Unshaken was unable to successfully break through, so there was naturally no need to mention anything. Chu Nan did not obtain any other inheritance that allowed him to freely mobilize the internal breath cultivated by the 9 revolutions technique. In theory, he could only cultivate his internal breath to a certain extent and successfully break through to the internal breath realm before he could attempt to mobilize his internal breath in battle. However, according to that unknown senior, even if an internal breath martial artist wanted to successfully do this, it was extremely difficult without a mature internal breath circulation method to complement their cultivation method. Moreover, it might cause danger and cause damage to their body. However, this did not mean that Chu Nan had no choice. Through his previous understanding, Chu Nan had basically grasped the pattern of using the Hong Clan's long fist together with the 9 revolutions technique to mobilize his internal breath. After a series of attempts in the Martial Soul virtual training ground, Chu Nan could already successfully mobilize his internal breath in every move of the Hong Clan's long fist. Moreover, as his proficiency increased, and as he continuously adjusted the trajectory of his internal breath every time, the internal breath he could mobilize in each punch became stronger and stronger, and the strength of his fist naturally increased as well. The force of the sitting horse rush fist earlier was actually as high as 891.712979 kilograms, and it far exceeded any of his previous punches. Most importantly, this punch made an abnormally bold thought appear in his mind. After thinking for a moment, Chu Nan sat down cross-legged and cultivated the 9 revolutions technique. Feeling his internal breath flowing through his meridians with the 9 revolutions technique, the bold idea in Chu Nan's heart gradually formed. The power of the 9 revolutions cultivation technique was the 9 revolutions internal breath. Every cycle would make the internal breath thicker. At the 9th revolution, the internal breath would become several times stronger than when it was at the first cycle or even dozens of times stronger. The stronger one cultivated the 9 revolutions technique, the greater this increase would be. It was said that Unshaken had cultivated the 9 revolutions technique to the 7th level back then. After reaching the 9th revolution internal breath, the power of his punch was even enough to blast apart stars. It far exceeded ordinary star-grade martial artists. Although this legend was a little exaggerated, it was enough to show the extraordinariness of the 9 revolutions technique. If not for the fact that the 9 revolutions cultivation technique was truly too difficult to break through and that no one had been able to reach the height of Unshaken back then, it would definitely not have been treated as one of the trash cultivation methods by others. Previously, when Chu Nan coordinated with the Hong Clan's long fist to mobilize his internal breath, he had only temporarily coordinated with the 9 revolutions technique in battle. He could only circulate his internal breath in time and its power was already extraordinary. What he wanted to do now was to try to advance his 9 revolutions internal breath. When he mobilized his internal breath sufficiently powerful, coupled with the use of the Hong Clan's long fist, the power would probably be even more shocking. Of course, the risk of doing this was definitely extremely great, so he could only try it in Martial Soul. This thought was also very difficult. This was because if he wanted to complement the use of internal breath with the Hong Clan's long fist, he had to calculate the trajectory of his internal breath in advance and match the moves of the Hong Clan's long fist. As for the 9 revolutions internal breath, it required time. Coupled with the physical movements, the timing had to be extremely exquisite and precise. The battle situation between martial artists was ever changing. How could it be so easy to accurately grasp all the changes and use the 9 revolutions technique in advance to complete 9 circulations of internal breath? The higher the difficulty, the higher the benefits. If I want to become an expert, how can I not take a risk? Chu Nan jumped up from the ground and simulated the plan of the 9 revolutions internal breath in his mind again. Then, he silently circulated the 9 revolutions technique and waited for his internal breath to circulate 9 times in his body before punching out. Chapter 53. After 2 days and 6 rounds of intense competition, after the 7th round of the West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition, the number of competitors had already decreased greatly. Take the groups below the age of 20 for example. In the first round, there were a total of 14,993 martial artists who signed up to participate. As for the 7th round of the competition today, there were only 256 left. However, compared to the past 2 days, the attention received today was much greater. The reason was very simple. Because there was no threshold set for the martial artists participating in the West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition, the levels of the martial artists who came to register were mixed. As a result, the vast majority of the competitions 2 days ago were like what Ringal had evaluated in the program. Their standards were too low, and it was truly unbearable to watch. Now, after 6 rounds of elimination, those who could pass 6 rounds in a row and still remain in the arena were nearly all powerful martial artists. The competition naturally became even more intense and exciting. However, there was another important reason why more people were paying attention to the competition today. The Focus News program of the Federation's Information Martial Arts World Channel was an extremely popular program. On the program yesterday, as a guest, Tang Xiaoyu took out an abnormally detailed dataset, proving that after 3 rounds of the West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition, the situation was extremely serious for the Earth Federation. The data showed that as the martial arts competition continued, the proportion of participating martial artists belonging to the Federation was actually decreasing at an extremely obvious rate. This was a martial arts competition held in the territory of the Earth Federation. It could be said to be a home-ground battle. The results obtained were actually so lousy. Therefore, under the deliberate push of some people and the media, the number of martial artists participating greatly decreased, and the number of people paying attention to this competition increased. In just a day, the news and discussion about the West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition on the Milky Way network increased more than 10 times. This competition almost instantly became the focus of attention of several countries. The people of the Earth Federation naturally hoped to see the martial artists of the Earth Federation obtain good results in the next few rounds of the competition and the final stage to protect the honor of the Earth Federation. As for the countries outside the Earth Federation, they were naturally happy to see the Earth Federation embarrassed. In fact, among those countries with their own martial artists participating and passing the first 6 rounds of the competition, many people directly mocked the Earth Federation publicly, causing the Earth Federation to counterattack. Therefore, an extremely intense flame war had erupted. However, no matter how well they argued, it was not as convincing as the truth. The next day, after the West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition ended, the statistics after the 6 rounds were immediately compiled. According to the competition rules, after the 6th round, the remaining martial artists in the West Cloud Planet's martial artist competition were 512 in the adult group above the age of 20, and 256 in the young martial artist group below the age of 20. Of the remaining 512 participating martial artists in the adult group, only 187 were left from the Earth Federation. They had barely passed a third. However, this was not the most shocking thing. What truly shocked and even frightened the people of the Earth Federation was that out of the 256 participating martial artists below the age of 20, only 42 were left. It was less than a sixth. This time, people truly valued the topic mentioned by Tang Xiaoyu on the Focus News program. The young martial artists represented the future. With such poor results, it meant that the future of the martial artists of the Earth Federation was unimaginable. It could even mean that the martial arts quality of the entire Earth Federation was falling. Perhaps some people were not too interested in this overly broad topic, but they had to admit that there was another possibility that Tang Xiaoyu had mentioned. That was, in this martial arts competition organized by the West Cloud Planet, the champion might be a non-Earth Federation martial artist. If this could become reality, it would be the humiliation of the entire Earth Federation. Therefore, the 3rd day of the West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition became the focus of countless people. If the last 3 rounds of the elimination stage on the 3rd day were still like the previous 2 days, then there might even be very few Earth Federation martial artists who entered the final stage. The hope of winning the championship was naturally even more remote. They could not allow this to happen. Martial artists of the Federation, please fight for the honor of the Federation. Chu Nan had just walked out of the floating shuttle specially sent by West Cloud Academy today. When he saw the surging crowd and the huge banner that was raised the most in the crowd, he could not help but be stunned. What is going on? Although there were many spectators in the competition 2 days ago, most of the audience only pretended to watch the competition leisurely. Most of them treated this competition as a grand entertainment event. Why did it seem like the audience had completely changed after not seeing them for a day? All of them became extremely excited, and there was even a faint trace of anger? He turned around and looked at the 7 floating shuttle cars that belonged to West Cloud Academy that followed behind him, as well as the students and teachers who were walking out from the 7 cars with various support banners in their hands. Chu Nan finally felt that something was wrong. Hey, Dongfang, do you know what is going on? Chu Nan grabbed Dongfang, who had just gotten out of the floating lot car, and walked over. He pointed at the crowd shouting their slogans. What is going on? Dongfang glanced in the direction Chu Nan pointed and nodded before laughing. Ha, have you forgotten the one I showed you yesterday? The virtual figure projection that Dongfang had shown him last night flashed through Chu Nan's mind, causing him to feel even more puzzled. What is going on? Heh, didn't I tell you yesterday that this competition? After Dongfang's rough explanation, Chu Nan finally understood what was going on. No wonder the academy took it so seriously today. They even specially sent a car to send us over and even pulled a bunch of students and teachers to be cheerleaders. Chu Nan's gaze swept past the students who were being organized by the other teachers and felt a little funny. On the first day of the competition, although the academy was careful, they only sent a team leader teacher and a logistics team composed of 5 staff members to follow. Early this morning, West Cloud Academy sent out a total of 7 cars. In total, there were more than 200 people. Apart from the teacher in charge, the logistics team had also increased to 15 people. Even the deputy dean of the martial arts branch followed. Coupled with the cheerleader squad of more than 100 people, the lineup could be said to be abnormally huge. Chu Nan had originally thought that he had benefited from another participant of the academy, who was also the biological son of the West Cloud Academy's dean, Feng Xiao. Now that he heard Dongfang's explanation, he discovered the reason why it was so laughable. Humph, can victory and defeat between martial artists be decided by shouting slogans? Chu Nan glanced at Feng Xiao, who was surrounded by a few teachers, and shook his head. Chapter 54. Although Chu Nan did not think much of the sudden change in attitude, it was beneficial for West Cloud Academy that everyone placed a high importance on this competition. With the extra support of the academy, Chu Nan did not need to deal with most of the miscellaneous matters like he did 2 days ago. At that time, he even had to register and find the competition venue himself. Today, such chores did not require Chu Nan to spend any additional effort. The teacher in charge, whose attitude had changed greatly, had long arranged things for him abnormally well, allowing him to enjoy the pleasure of being carefully waited on. Heh, Chu Nan, are you confident? Dongfang had not come to watch the battle 2 days ago. This was the first time he had come today. After he got out of the car, he ran around wildly. At this moment, he appeared out of nowhere and asked Chu Nan with a serious expression when he saw him. Chu Nan glanced at his expression and shook his head. Not confident. Dongfang was stunned, and then he frowned. Indeed. I looked around just now. The remaining participating martial artists are indeed not easy to deal with. I just casually walked around and saw at least 10 internal breath realm martial artists. Damn, this is below the age of 20. Why are there so many internal breath realm fellows? Chu Nan rolled his eyes. Nonsense. It's not rare to see young martial artists who can perfect the overlord body realm before the age of 20 and break through to the internal breath realm. Just our West Cloud Academy alone has a few. What's so strange about that? That's true. However, Chu Nan, I asked around yesterday. Among the 15 participants in our West Cloud Academy, 3 of the 3rd grade participants are participating in the group below the age of 20. One of them is an internal breath expert. Why did he get eliminated while Feng Xiao stayed? Chu Nan glanced at Feng Xiao, who was talking to the deputy dean in the distance, and shrugged. Perhaps he was lucky. Indeed, Feng Xiao was only a 4th stage overlord body martial artist. In terms of strength, he was even slightly inferior to Luoli. In the end, after 6 rounds, not only was Luoli heavily injured, but other internal breath experts had also been eliminated. Instead, it was really abnormal for a 4th stage overlord body realm martial artist like Feng Xiao to still be in the competition. Tisk. Dongfang curled his lips with disdain. He turned to look at Chu Nan and smiled. Of course, Chu Nan, if we really talk about luck, I'm afraid everyone will think that you're the luckiest one, right? You're only at the initial stage overlord body realm, but you've also entered the 7th round. Who would believe it if word got out? Whether they believe it or not, it's none of my business. Chu Nan rolled his eyes. Of course, if he had to say it, Chu Nan felt that his luck was not bad. In the first 3 rounds, he had encountered initial stage or second stage overlord body martial artists, so their strength was naturally very weak. In the 4th to 6th rounds of the previous day, although the opponent he had encountered had increased in strength, it was only the Azalu he had encountered in the 5th round that had brought him some trouble. The opponent in the 6th round was only an ordinary martial artist between the 4th and 5th stage overlord body realm. In comparison, only Azalu was the strongest. In the end, he was the opponent who helped Chu Nan the most, allowing him to indirectly understand the method to flexibly use his internal breath in battle. Chu Nan even felt that if he had the chance to encounter Azalu again, he should thank him properly. "Heh, Chu Nan, I'm asking you, are you confident?" Dongfang nudged Chu Nan with his elbow and asked again. "Don't forget that you promised Xing Yuanlin to win the group championship below the age of 20. Chu Nan smiled bitterly, thinking about it now. I was really too arrogant in front of Senior Zheng. To be honest, I'm not completely confident. Not completely confident? Does this mean that you still have a little confidence? Dongfang's eyes lit up. Recalling the experiment practice and subsequent breakthroughs in the Martial Soul virtual training ground last night, Chu Nan took a deep breath and slowly nodded. If there aren't any unexpected opponents, I'm more than 50% confident. Dongfang looked at Chu Nan in surprise. I say, ever since you broke through the 3rd level of the 9 revolutions technique, you've really become different. Seeing you like this, I'm a little tempted to practice the 9 revolutions technique. Of course, Chu Nan knew that he was joking. He smiled and shook his head and ignored it. Alright, regardless of whether it's true or not, it's good that you're confident. Dongfang patted Chu Nan's shoulder. Deputy Dean Payne has come. It seems that he wants to chat with you and cheer you on. I'll leave first and return before the competition begins. After saying this, Dongfang displayed flexibility that was completely different from his fat body and quickly entered the crowd and disappeared. "Heh, Chu Nan, how is it? Is your condition all right?" Deputy Dean Payne was of Germanic descent. He was tall and strong with a full beard and a rough voice. He slapped Chu Nan's shoulder, causing his muscles to involuntarily jump. "Deputy Dean, thank you for your concern. I'm in a good state now." Unlike Luo Yintong, who was hated by the students of the martial arts branch because he often protected Luo Li, the junior, Deputy Dean Payne was very approachable and was deeply loved by the students. Chu Nan revealed a confident smile and deliberately bent his arm to show him his muscles. Deputy Dean Payne laughed and patted Chu Nan's shoulder again. He pondered for a moment and his expression became serious. "Chu Nan, you and Fengxiao are the only 2 remaining participants in our academy's group below the age of 20. I won't say that I want you to obtain honor for our academy, nor will I ask you to fight for the honor of the Federation like those ignorant people. I only want to say that you're a martial artist now. Since you're a martial artist, you have to face every battle with all your might. Can you do it?" Chu Nan smiled. "Deputy Dean, demanding that the other party do his best and not have regrets is a sign that you don't have confidence in the other party. I remember that you said this yourself. It seems that you don't have any confidence in me now." Deputy Dean Payne was stunned and looked at Chu Nan in surprise before laughing again. "Very good. I like straightforward fellows like you." "That's right, I indeed did not have much confidence in you, because you are after all, only an initial stage overlord body realm martial artist. However, since you were able to defeat Luo Li in the qualifiers of the academy and even defeat Lu Mingqing, I believe that you definitely have true strength that far exceeds our imagination. Therefore, is it true that I don't have confidence in you? That's not right. I actually have a lot of confidence in you now, even more than I do in Fengxiao." At this point, Deputy Dean Payne even bent down slightly and leaned closer to Chu Nan. He whispered in his ear, "Of course, I can't say this publicly, let alone say it in front of Fengxiao. You must understand." Chu Nan could not help but smile. "Deputy Dean, I'm not that stupid." "That's good." Deputy Dean Payne stood up and patted Chu Nan's shoulder again. "Go fight well. I look forward to your surprising performance." Chu Nan watched as Deputy Dean Payne returned to the group of teachers and students who were in the cheerleader squad. Then, his gaze collided with Fengxiao's. Fengxiao had a serious expression. When he saw Chu Nan looking over, he nodded as a greeting. He did not have the arrogant and despotic appearance he usually had in the academy. Chu Nan smiled. From the looks of it, Fengxiao must be feeling very pressured at this moment, preventing him from relaxing. Just as he turned around and was about to drink some water, a young and beautiful face collided with him. "Heh, Chu Nan, right? Hello, I'm the reporter from the Federation's Information Martial Arts World Channel, Yang Zaryui. May I interview you?" Chapter 55. At 9 in the morning on West Cloud Planet, the 7th round of the martial arts competition officially began. Unlike the previous 2 days, the competition had to be divided into different times. Because there were only hundreds of participants left on the third day, the existing venue was already enough for all the competitions to be carried out simultaneously. In the 256 competitions of the adult group and the 128 competitions of the group under the age of 20, people's attention was naturally divided. To the live audience of the Earth Federation and the audience who had watched through various broadcast channels, they naturally paid more attention to the competitions that famous martial artists participated in. Clearly, the adult group competition had a natural advantage in this because only adults would be stronger and more famous. Among them, the competition between the only 9 void break martial artists received the most attention. The Earth Federation's Martial Arts World Channel even directly broadcasted a competition between void break martial artists from the Earth Federation. In comparison, other competitions below the age of 20 were also highly watched, and in a sense, they were even more eye-catching than those in the adult group. This was because the previous data had already shown that in the group below the age of 20, the young martial artists of the Earth Federation could not even make up 1/6 of the remaining participants. Moreover, according to the detailed statistics of a certain someone on the Milky Way network, even among the remaining 42 young martial artists of the Earth's Federation under the age of 20, the number of those who really had hope of winning the championship was small. According to the statistics, among the remaining 42 young martial artists, only one young martial artist had the strength of a second-stage internal breath realm martial artist. 4 young martial artists had the strength of an initial-stage internal breath realm martial artist, and the remaining 37 young martial artists were all only overlord body realm martial artists. Compared to the powerful strength of the other countries participating martial artists who were on average initial-stage internal breath realm martial artists, the young martial artists of the Earth Federation were undoubtedly much inferior. Therefore, before the 7th round of the competition began, someone speculated pessimistically that only after the 7th round ended would more than half of the remaining young martial artists of the Earth Federation be eliminated. When the 8th and 9th rounds ended, the worst outcome was that even a martial artist belonging to the Earth Federation could not stay. If not even a single young martial artist from the Earth Federation could enter the finals, this West Cloud Planet's martial artist competition would simply be the greatest humiliation to the Earth Federation. Due to the evaluation of strength, most of the gazes focused on the competition below the age of 20 were focused on the few internal breath realm young martial artists of the Earth Federation. Only a small number of people would focus on the competition between the other young martial artists of the Earth Federation. As for an ordinary young martial artist like Chu Nan, who was not famous at all and was not even an internal breath realm martial artist, no one paid attention to him. Even the cheerleaders of the West Cloud Academy were almost all sent to Fengshao's competition venue to cheer for him, the son of the dean and a 4th-stage overlord body martial artist. Chu Nan did not know the situation of the competition on Fengshao's side and did not care about such things. All his attention was focused on his opponent. This participant with a number of 6,830 and who came from the Fezan Autonomous Region was called Chloe. As soon as he appeared, he bluntly revealed his strength as an internal breath martial artist, causing the few Earth Federation audiences around him to instantly lose confidence in Chu Nan. Sigh, this 12,333 seems to be only at the low-stage overlord body realm. How can he defeat an internal breath realm martial artist? That's right. He's still a participating student of the West Cloud Academy, right? This West Cloud Academy is really getting worse year by year. Even a student with such poor strength can be sent out to be a representative. Speaking of which, how did this guy pass the first 6 rounds? Could it be that his luck was so good that he encountered lower-level overlord body martial artists in the first 6 rounds? Could it be that some important figure specially took care of this kid, so the competition schedule was specially arranged? What's the use? Doesn't he still have to encounter experts and be beaten? Although the loud discussion of the audience below the stage surged into Chu Nan's ears, it did not cause any change in his expression. He glanced at Chloe opposite him and saw that he was still putting on a loose appearance with a disdainful smile. He took a step forward and circulated the 9 revolutions technique. The internal breath in his body flowed as he threw a punch. Chloe's eyes narrowed. Chu Nan's punch seemed ordinary, but the speed of his punch was abnormally fast. When the tip of his fist struck, an ear-piercing sound could be heard. It could be seen that the force behind his punch was extremely shocking. How can this guy be only a low-level overlord body martial artist? As soon as the shocking thought arose in Chloe's mind, Chu Nan's fist approached. Chloe had previously underestimated Chu Nan and was not prepared for battle. Now, he was actually unable to react in time and could only hurriedly raise his right hand to block his chest. He did not have any frightened thoughts. Instead, he sneered in his mind. Even if Chu Nan's strength surpassed what he had seen on the surface, he was only an overlord body realm martial artist in the end. If this fellow dared to face an internal breath realm martial artist like him, he would be courting death. As expected, just as he was about to punch Chloe's palm, Chu Nan flipped his wrist and his right fist changed an angle to strike the space under the ribs. Although Chloe was surprised by Chu Nan's fast and precise change in move, he was even more relieved. Chu Nan clearly didn't dare to fight him head-on. Then, it was time for him, an internal breath realm martial artist, to show his true strength. Facing Chu Nan's variable attack, Chloe did not dodge at all. Instead, he straightened his chest and similarly threw a punch at him. He could estimate that because he was counterattacking, this punch should only hit after Chu Nan's punch landed. However, he was a powerful internal breath realm martial artist while Chu Nan was only an ordinary low-level overlord body martial artist. Even if Chu Nan's punch landed firmly on his body, it was impossible for it to cause any damage to him under the protection of his internal breath. On the contrary, it was impossible for Chu Nan to endure his punch that had a powerful internal breath. If he really dared to exchange blows with him, he would at least be heavily injured. Therefore, Chu Nan's only choice was to retreat. As long as Chu Nan dared to take the first step back, Chloe was certain that he would definitely defeat him in 10 moves. However, under the shocked gazes of the audience and Chloe, it was as if Chu Nan did not sense this terrifying outcome. He also did not dodge or even change his posture as his right fist went straight for Chloe's ribs. Although Chloe was surprised, it was too late to change his move. Moreover, why did he need to change his move? He similarly maintained his move and threw a punch at Chu Nan. The first confrontation after the two of them went up the stage had actually directly become the most tragic exchange of injuries. Chu Nan's upper body moved slightly. His fist was about half a second earlier than Chloe's estimation and firmly struck the lower left ribs. Chloe felt an extremely huge and irresistible force explode from Chu Nan's fist. In the next moment, his body had already flown into the air. He passed the guardrail of the competition venue and fell heavily outside. Chapter 56. Seeing Chloe's body fly out of the venue, the audience was stunned. What the heck? This guy called Chloe was clearly an internal breath martial artist, but he was actually sent flying by Chu Nan with a punch? Chu Nan was clearly only an ordinary overlord body realm martial artist. The audience felt that their morals had been greatly challenged. However, after being stunned for a moment, most of the audience below the stage immediately clapped and cheered. No matter what, Chu Nan was still a martial artist of the Earth Federation. Although Chloe came from the Fezan Autonomous Region that had a good relationship with the Earth Federation, she was still a foreigner. It was naturally something worth being happy about that Chu Nan could defeat Chloe. Moreover, the situation of the West Cloud Planet's martial artist competition was so serious, especially in the groups below the age of 20. If one more young martial artist from the Earth Federation could enter the next round, it would increase the chances of the Earth Federation martial artist obtaining the championship. Yeah, that's great. Among the cheering audience, young Zaryui was the most excited. She was so happy that she even jumped up, causing the assistant beside her to look at her twice. Although it was indeed worth being happy that the young martial artists of the Earth Federation defeated foreign martial artists, it should not make young Zaryui so happy, right? Moreover, this young martial artist called Chu Nan had rejected young Zaryui's interview request twice yesterday and today. In the assistant's opinion, this was clearly not giving young Zaryui any face. It was already not bad that young Zaryui was not angry at him. Why was she still so excited about his victory? At this moment, young Zaryui could not care less what her assistant was thinking. She stared at Chu Nan, who was walking down the stage, and felt extremely excited. Her judgment was indeed correct. This Chu Nan could definitely make big news. Chu Nan slowly walked down the stairs and arrived beside Chloe, who had already gotten up. He stretched out his hand. After Chloe fell out of the arena, the referee had already determined that Chu Nan had won. According to the rules of the competition, shaking hands after the competition was a friendly process. However, perhaps because he was not convinced or because he felt that it was strange, Chu Nan's previous opponents did not complete the process with him in the previous 6 rounds, causing him to feel a little regretful. He originally thought that Chloe, an expert of the internal breath realm, would be like the other experts and leave directly because he was unwilling to accept being defeated by Chu Nan by accident. He did not expect that Chloe would look at him from head to toe and actually reach out to grab the hand Chu Nan held out with an excited and curious expression. "Heh, your name is Chu Nan, right? Can you tell me what cultivation method you cultivate? Why is your internal breath so special? Right, what fist technique did you use just now? Your strength is too shocking. I'm very curious, can you tell me? Or should we find a place to spar now?" Chu Nan speechlessly looked at Chloe, who was talking nonstop. This guy did not say a word on the stage and put on the appearance of a cold expert. His attacks were even simpler, direct, and even rough. He did not expect that the situation below the stage had completely changed. As soon as Chu Nan spoke, Chloe saw that he seemed to be hesitating and immediately interrupted. Yes, I understand. It's very annoying to inquire about other people's cultivation methods. The martial artists of your Earth Federation pay more attention to this. It's fine if you really don't want to say it. I'm just curious, really curious. Actually, I really don't think it's a big deal. In the end, you're only an overlord body realm martial artist, so the cultivation method you cultivate shouldn't be much better. Forgive me, I'm such a straightforward person. Chu Nan began to regret it. He used to think that Dongfang was noisy enough, but he did not expect that this guy was actually several times noisier than Dongfang. If only he had known that he would ignore this rule and leave directly. Chloe pulled Chu Nan and spoke for nearly 10 minutes before Chu Nan exchanged his personal terminal number and left the communication method before reluctantly leaving. Looking at his back disappear into the crowd, Chu Nan heaved a sigh of relief. He thought for a moment and found it funny. When he was in the West Cloud Academy, he usually came into contact with some students of the same grade. When he came to participate in this West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition, he could come into contact with all kinds of martial artists and the various strange martial techniques they grasped. It was truly an eye-opener. Azalo and Chloe, who he had encountered in the earlier rounds, were both very special fellows. He believed that he would easily recognize them the next time he encountered them. When he thought of this, a figure flashed through Chu Nan's mind. The guy who could even circulate his internal breath at any time when he walked had also left a deep impression on him. He did not know if they could meet after entering the finals. Just as he thought of this, Chu Nan felt a gaze sweep over. His heart stirred, and when he raised his head, he saw the young martial artist that had flashed through his mind. He still had that arrogant expression and disdainful gaze as he looked at Chu Nan provocatively. Seeing him staring like this, Chu Nan was puzzled. Why was this guy so hostile to him? Could it be because he had glanced at him in the crowd earlier? Marok raised his head slightly and raised his hand to gesture at Chu Nan in the distance before sneering. Although this Earth kid looked to be only an ordinary overlord body realm martial artist, his vision was not bad. Last time, he could actually see that Marok was special. Presumably, his true strength was much stronger than it looked, or he had a master guiding him from behind. While waiting for the next round to begin, it was not bad to find him to stretch his limbs and pass the time. In the distance, Chu Nan frowned slightly and carefully observed Marok for a while. His expression seemed to be a little hesitant. Marok sneered again and flipped his finger at Chu Nan before gesturing with his thumb. When he saw this action, Chu Nan immediately laughed. This guy was clearly a young martial artist from the kingdom of Kexley, but he had specially used this common gesture in the Earth Federation. He had some knowledge of the Earth Federation. He thought for a moment and decided to ask why the other party was so hostile to him. If it was only because of the tense relationship between the Earth Federation and the kingdom of Kexley, this person was too bored. Just as he took a step, a figure suddenly rushed in front of Chu Nan and stopped their exchange of gazes. Hello, Chu Nan. I'm the reporter from the Federation's Information Martial Arts World Channel, Yang Zaryui. May I interview you? Chu Nan sighed helplessly and looked past Yang Zaryui's shoulder. He discovered that the guy had already turned around and left, so he lowered his head to look at Yang Zaryui. Miss Yang Zaryui, why do you want to interview me so much? I'm not a famous person. Because I feel that there are many things worth digging about you. Yang Zaryui revealed a sweet smile. Chu Nan, you're clearly only a low-level overlord body martial artist, but you've defeated several high-level overlord body martial artists in a row. You've even defeated an internal breath martial artist now. Don't you think this is very worth paying attention to? That's only because these people underestimated their opponent. Chu Nan shook his head and was about to leave when his heart suddenly stirred. He asked Yang Zaryui, right, can I watch your show, The Purple Cloud Planet? Of course. The Federation's Information Martial Arts World Channel is broadcasted to the entire Earth Federation. It can be seen from anywhere in the Federation. Then, will the interview with me be broadcasted? Hearing the meaning of Chu Nan's words, the smile on Yang Zaryui's face became even wider with a hint of cunningness. This will depend on whether the interview with you has enough news value. Chapter 57. On the top floor of the hotel, Mu Yatong, who was in deep thought, suddenly looked up and looked at the door in confusion. Come in. The door is not locked. The door was pushed open and Norman with his signature green hair strode in. What's wrong with you today? You're actually willing to come to my place as a guest. Mu Yatong smiled and greeted. Norman shook his head and did not answer. Instead, he walked straight to the large terminal screen set up in the room and transmitted a message. A moment later, the image of Chu Nan punching Chloe away appeared on the huge virtual screen. After waiting for this scene to repeat twice, Norman pointed at Chu Nan on the virtual screen and asked Mu Yutong, "Hey, do you recognize this kid?" The moment he saw Chu Nan on the virtual screen, a trace of surprise flashed through Mu Yutong's eyes before he suppressed it. Now that he heard Norman ask, he smiled and asked, "What? Is there a problem?" Norman glared at him. "What's the problem? Do you know that this guy has eliminated a genius from our Pheasant Autonomous region? You've always told me that you didn't find any good seedlings this time. I don't believe you didn't notice this little guy." Mu Yutong was silent for a moment before his gaze swept past Chu Nan, who was frozen on the virtual screen. He sighed softly and nodded. "His name is Chu Nan. You did notice." Norman sneered. "Very good, Mu. Now that you have completed your goal, according to our agreement, you will have to go to the Pheasant Autonomous region with me next month." Mu Yutong looked up at him. "Who told you that I've completed my goal?" Norman was stunned, then furious. "You clearly have such an outstanding kid here, but you're telling me that you didn't complete the goal? Are you lying through your teeth?" Chu Nan. When he mentioned Chu Nan's name, Mu Yutong frowned slightly. "He is indeed very outstanding and his talent is very good, but he still does not fulfill my requirement." "How is that possible? Although I did not take Chloe as my disciple, his talent is rather good. He has already become a second-stage internal breath martial artist at the age of 19, but he was sent flying by a punch from this kid called Chu Nan. Could it be that he still can't meet your requirements?" Norman clearly did not believe it. "Look carefully." Mu Yutong pointed at the virtual screen. "Watch a few more times and you'll see why." Seeing Mu Yutong's serious expression, Norman frowned and started to play this video again. The scene of Chu Nan sending Chloe flying with a punch only lasted for a few seconds. Norman quickly read it a few times. His two thick green eyebrows that were like weeds growing on his eyes frowned deeply. This kid doesn't seem to have reached the level of an internal breath realm martial artist. To be precise, he's only at the initial stage overlord body realm now. Of course, from the looks of it, he has made some breakthroughs recently. Perhaps he can be considered a second stage overlord body martial artist. What a joke. Norman reflexively retorted. If he was only an initial stage or second stage overlord body martial artist, what right did he have to send a second stage internal breath martial artist like Chloe flying with a punch? Look, he clearly used internal breath in his punch. Do you need me to tell you that overlord body martial artists can also mobilize their internal breath in battle? Mu Yutong glanced at him indifferently. Norman sneered and frowned as he looked at the image twice more. He turned and looked at Mu Yutong solemnly. "Tell me, what's going on? This kid called Chu Nan does look like a low-level overlord body, but he was actually able to send Chloe flying with a punch. It's clearly not that simple." Mu Yutong shook his head and did not answer. He adjusted the large screen on the terminal and released another video. This scene was the scene that he had watched and evaluated with Xing Yuanlin before. It was the scene where Chu Nan repelled Luo Jie in the underground parking lot. After repeating this scene a few times, Norman fell silent. After a long time, he asked, "Are you sure this little guy is only at the low-stage overlord body realm?" "You saw it just now," Mu Yutong replied. Norman was silent for a moment longer, then suddenly let out a long sigh. "How unfortunate." Mu Yutong smiled bitterly. "It's indeed a pity." Norman sighed. "If we could have discovered this little guy 10 years earlier, your Earth Federation would have probably benefited greatly from the next invitation from the royal family of Declan. It would probably not be difficult for another star-grade martial artist to appear in the future. Unfortunately, he's only at the low-stage overlord body realm now. His body has yet to be tempered, and his internal breath is far from sufficient. It's almost impossible for him to break through the cosmic heaven's gate in the future. No matter how hard he works, he'll probably only be a low-level void break martial artist at most." "What a pity." Mu Yutong also had an expression of pity. "Forget about the cosmic heaven's gate for now, but it's only a few years until the invitation from the royal family of Declan. It's impossible for him to reach the minimum requirement in a short few years. Therefore, although I admire him very much, I can only give up." Norman nodded lightly in agreement. In their opinion, if Chu Nan had enough hard work and opportunities in the future, there was still a chance that he could become a void break martial artist. In the eyes of ordinary people, he could be considered an expert, but in the eyes of these two star-grade martial artists, void break martial artists were not much different from ordinary people, so there was no need to pay too much attention to him. After thinking for a moment, Norman suddenly asked, "Right, Mu Yutong, did your Earth Federation push for the popularization of basic martial arts this time to prevent similar wasted potential like Chu Nan from appearing again?" "Of course." Mu Yutong slowly nodded. "Do you still remember what Yuanlin told you before? Our Earth Federation does not lack talent, but we lack the way to discover talent. There are definitely countless young geniuses like Chu Nan in our Earth Federation. If we can let these geniuses who are buried lay a sufficient martial arts foundation in advance, we can let them grow as much as possible. Norman thought for a moment and shook his head. This policy is useless in our Fezan Autonomous Region. Everyone in our Fezan Autonomous Region has practiced martial arts since young. As long as one has enough talent, they will definitely be able to appear. There will definitely not be a situation like Chu Nan. Are you sure? Mu Yatong glanced at him. Norman paused and smiled bitterly. Alright, I'm not 100% sure. But no matter what, we're much better than your Earth Federation. It can't be helped. The history of your Fezan Autonomous Region is actually about the same as the Declan Empire. The time when our Earth Federation stepped into the Milky Way and truly started to explore martial arts was only a few hundred years. Mu Yatong stood up and circled the room twice before suddenly revealing a slightly strange smile to Norman. Are you interested in putting up a show with me? Chapter 58. In the temporary logistics base of West Cloud Academy, the atmosphere was extremely depressing and strange. Be it their actions or words, the people in the base appeared to be a little careful. They were afraid to anger Fengxiao, who was sitting at the side with a terrifying and dark expression, looking abnormally vexed. The 8th round of the elimination round had just ended. Although Fengxiao had relied on his powerful inherited cultivation method in the 7th round to erupt with astonishing combat strength and defeat a powerful opponent who was at the perfection stage overlord body and was only a step away from breaking through to the internal breath realm, he had encountered an internal breath realm martial artist in the next 8th round and was defeated without any suspense. There was only one round left until the finals. This fact naturally made Fengxiao extremely unwilling. However, he was powerless to change this fact. The difference in strength between martial artists was extremely direct. The stronger party had indeed won. With his current strength at the 4th stage overlord body realm, no one would be surprised if he was defeated by an internal breath realm martial artist who was an entire level higher. However, there were accidents in this world. Fengxiao turned around slightly and his gaze landed on another corner of the temporary base. At this moment, a group of people surrounded Chu Nan. The atmosphere was different from here and it was relaxed and happy. This damned guy, how can he pass the 8th round? Fengxiao gritted his teeth, feeling furious and puzzled. Not only was Fengxiao puzzled that Chu Nan could pass the 8th round of the elimination rounds, most of the people in West Cloud Academy were also puzzled. After all, Chu Nan was only an initial stage overlord body realm martial artist. It was understandable that he could pass the first few rounds, but how could he pass the next few rounds, especially in the competition where there were so many experts today? Chu Nan ignored the complicated gazes that were thrown at him. Instead, he lowered his head and carefully studied the information displayed on the virtual screen of his personal terminal. This information was brought over by Deputy Dean Payne just now. The content inside was about the opponents he would face in the 9th round of the elimination rounds. Name: Saha. Number: 9526. Country: Kingdom of Kexley. Chu Nan did not have any thoughts about the name Saha. His main attention was focused on 9526 in Kingdom of Kexley. The guy who had severely injured Luoli earlier was also from the Kingdom of Kexley. The number was 9527, which was one number away. If he was not wrong, the two of them should be companions. Then, from this point of view, Saha's strength would not be weak. Moreover, according to this information that Deputy Dean Payne had gathered, the strength that Saha had displayed in the previous 8 rounds was indeed extraordinary. The initial judgment was that he was at least an initial stage internal breath realm martial artist, and it was possible that he was still hiding his strength. Apart from recording these calculations, this information also gathered all the videos of the previous 8 rounds of the competition. After Chu Nan carefully read through it, he discovered that Saha did not reveal much in the first 8 rounds. Apart from being able to tell that his moves were extremely stable and rarely revealed any flaws, he could not see anything else. After all, it was very difficult to see internal breath in the video information. To a martial artist above the internal breath realm, the strength and how to use internal breath were the most important factors in determining strength. However, Chu Nan still looked at it seriously. With his current strength, he did not expect to use his internal breath to suppress his opponent. The possibility of defeating an internal breath expert could only be suppressed through his powerful data ability. Analyzing these videos could allow him to roughly grasp the characteristics of Saha's martial technique. At the same time, he could collect a large amount of physical data and determine his exact ability. It was very helpful for the upcoming battle. After looking at it for a while, Deputy Dean Payne appeared in front of Chu Nan again. Chu Nan, the competition is about to begin. How's your preparation? Chu Nan raised his head and revealed a brilliant smile to Deputy Dean Payne. Deputy Dean, no matter how well prepared I am, I can only know the truth in the arena, right? Deputy Dean Payne laughed. Very good. It seems that you have more confidence than I thought. After saying that, he patted Chu Nan's shoulder. All right, go. Chu Nan went through the information in his mind and stood up. He had just taken 2 steps when a figure suddenly blocked Chu Nan. Feng Xiao, what are you doing? Chu Nan looked at him in shock. Feng Xiao's face sank as he stared at Chu Nan from head to toe a few times and sneered. Chu Nan, I'm warning you. If you dare to lose this round, I'll definitely not let you have a good time when we return to the academy. Ha! Chu Nan looked at him in confusion. However, after Feng Xiao threw this sentence, he turned around and left without giving Chu Nan a chance to ask. Ha! What's wrong with this kid? Dongfeng appeared out of nowhere and muttered to Feng Xiao's back. How would I know? Chu Nan shrugged. Alright, don't bother about him. Chu Nan, do you have to be so serious? Isn't your opponent in this round only a second stage internal breath martial artist? Isn't the guy you dealt with in the 7th round the same? Chu Nan smiled bitterly and shook his head. I've already told you. That opponent in the 7th round underestimated his opponent. Otherwise, I wouldn't have won so easily. Ha, look. You said that you wouldn't win so easily, not that you won't. Very good, it seems that you're indeed very confident now. I can't be bothered to say so much nonsense. In short, do your best. Dongfeng patted Chu Nan's back and pushed him to the predetermined competition venue. The other students in the logistics base looked around. Just as they were hesitating, Feng Xiao suddenly shouted, "What are you all doing here? Aren't you going to cheer for Chu Nan?" The other students looked at Feng Xiao in surprise. Seeing that his expression was extremely serious and did not have the slightest intention of joking, they reacted and hurriedly followed behind. After all, Chu Nan was the only hope left in the group below the age of 20. If they did not cheer for him, it would not make sense. A moment later, the group of people had already arrived at the competition venue. Because it was the last round of the elimination rounds, there were 64 matches left in the adult group. There were only 32 competitions left in the group below the age of 20. Even if they were to be held at the same time, they only occupied 96 venues. Compared to the previous competition that had more than 1,000 venues open at the same time, the last round had become abnormally concentrated, so it was naturally easier to attract a large number of spectators. The area beside the competition venue that Chu Nan was in was already surrounded by thousands of people. It was so crowded that not even a drop of water could pass through, and there was only a competition passageway left. The group of people from West Cloud Academy sent Chu Nan to the entrance of the competition passageway and cheered him on. Chu Nan smiled and nodded. Just as he was about to turn around and walk into the venue, he turned around and saw a familiar face filled with unyieldingness. Chapter 59. Their gazes collided and they revealed surprised expressions. Seeing the other party's surprised expression, Chu Nan could not help but smile bitterly. He and this guy were really destined to meet each other no matter where he went. Then, his gaze landed on the other person beside that guy, and he recognized that this person was the opponent he had seen on the information sheet and was about to face, Saha from the Kingdom of Kexley. The introduction of Saha flashed through his mind and Chu Nan quickly looked at the arrogant guy beside him. 9,527? That person was stunned and glanced at Chu Nan from head to toe. He chuckled and said, "It seems that your investigation of senior brother is quite detailed. Even I know about it." After saying that, he glanced at the other West Cloud Academy students beside Chu Nan and shook his head with an extremely disdainful expression. A bunch of useless people from the Earth Federation. The students of West Cloud Academy were originally stunned by Chu Nan's sudden mention of 9,527. When they suddenly heard this, they were immediately furious. After cursing him, a student suddenly pointed at him and shouted, "I remember now. He's 9,527, the guy who heavily injured Luoli. He's that guy from the Kingdom of Kexley? So it's him." The students were agitated, but that person's expression did not change. He only raised his eyebrows. "In that case, I heavily injured your companion? Oh, then I'm really sorry. It can't be helped, he's too weak." Seeing his mocking expression, the students of the West Cloud Academy were even angrier. Although Luoli's reputation in the West Cloud Academy was usually not good, he was still a member of the West Cloud Academy. After all, he was from the Earth Federation. Not only was he heavily injured by this guy from the Kingdom of Kexley, but this fellow was also mocking them now. How could everyone endure this? However, in the face of everyone's cursing, that person only stretched out his hand and dug his ear with his small finger, then took it out. He made a gesture of flicking away the ear feces and said disdainfully, "A group of useless people who only know how to use their mouths. If you have the ability, go on stage and defeat me. If not, shut up obediently. After throwing this sentence, he ignored the other students and glanced at Chu Nan. He shook his head and sighed. What a pity. I don't like you. I originally wanted to teach you a lesson in front of everyone and break your legs, but I didn't expect you to encounter my senior brother ahead of time. It's impossible for you to pass my senior brother, and I don't have the chance to teach you a lesson in the competition. Senior brother? Chu Nan automatically ignored the other words and noticed this title. Previously, he had only guessed that Saha and this 9527 were companions. He did not expect them to be intimate fellow disciples. Unlike 9527, Saha's personality was the same as the martial arts characteristics he revealed in the information video. He was extremely calm and even silent. Ever since he appeared, he had only been observing Chu Nan and did not say a word. Even if 9527 and the students beside Chu Nan had a conflict, he still ignored them as if all his attention was focused on Chu Nan. Seeing that Chu Nan ignored him, 9527 thought that he was afraid and patted Saha's shoulder. Senior brother, play with this kid well. Of course, you can't kill him, or you'll be eliminated. Only then did Saha move his gaze away from Chu Nan and look at 9527. He shook his head and sighed. Marok, I should be the one saying this to you. In addition, your competition is about to begin. Go quickly. Only then did Chu Nan know that this 9527's name was actually Marok. After hearing Saha's words, he shrugged his shoulders and gestured disdainfully at the West Cloud Academy students beside Chu Nan before slowly leaving. After he disappeared into the crowd, Saha suddenly became serious. He bent down and bowed deeply to Chu Nan and the students of the West Cloud Academy. I'm sorry, my junior brother has such a personality. Please forgive his rudeness just now. Chu Nan and the students were stunned. Although this Saha and that Marok were fellow disciples, the difference in their personalities was worlds apart. It really made people feel strange. Everyone looked at each other, and it was naturally inappropriate for them to say anything. Saha stood up and gestured at Chu Nan. Please come on stage and begin the competition. Chu Nan glanced at him and bade farewell to his classmates before walking into the arena with Saha. At 3:38 p.m. on Earth, which was 2 p.m. in the local time of West Cloud City on West Cloud Planet, the 9th round of the highly anticipated West Cloud Planet's martial arts competition officially began. As soon as the referee announced the official start of the competition, Chu Nan had already moved. He rushed towards Saha and threw a punch. From the video information, this Saha basically walked the path of stabilizing himself while defending and counterattacking. Chu Nan did not want to drag the battle out with him. Otherwise, with the strength of an expert of the internal breath realm, Saha's internal breath was far deeper than Chu Nan's. His ability to last longer would naturally be much stronger. If he dragged this on for too long, Chu Nan's chances of winning would become increasingly slim. Therefore, even though Saha was skilled in defense and counterattack, Chu Nan also hoped to attack immediately and force the other party to reveal a flaw so as to determine the outcome. Unexpectedly, when he saw that Chu Nan's punch had already arrived in front of him, Saha did not plan to defend at all. Instead, he took a step forward and received it with a punch. He was actually the same as Chloe in the 7th round, who exchanged injuries with Chu Nan right from the beginning. Chu Nan was slightly surprised, but then he was overjoyed. It was because Chloe had underestimated him that she was sent flying and defeated by his punch. Now, Saha was also doing this. He was simply courting death. Before he threw this punch, Chu Nan had already circulated the 9 revolutions technique in advance. When his fist approached Saha's left shoulder, the 9 revolutions technique had just completed 2 cycles of circulation and successfully obtained an increase. The huge internal breath was completely condensed on the tip of his fist. The force of this punch was already as high as 758.682131 kilograms. Chu Nan believed that if Saha still did not dodge, he would definitely be sent flying by this punch like Chloe. Bang! In the next moment, Chu Nan punched the collarbone of Saha's lower left shoulder. However, Chu Nan only felt as if his fist had struck an extremely thick and hard rock. Not only was it unable to cause any damage to Saha, but his fist was also greatly pained by the powerful recoil. Saha's body did not even sway. His punch was not affected at all and similarly headed for Chu Nan's left shoulder. Chu Nan cursed in his mind. At this moment, he could only sink his left shoulder slightly and lean back using the recoil of his fist. However, this still could not completely dodge this punch. Bang! Saha's punch firmly struck Chu Nan, and an extremely huge force assaulted him like a mountain torrent. Chu Nan's body involuntarily flew out and he fell to the ground. He rolled a few times before barely stopping. Saha did not pursue him. Instead, he waited for Chu Nan to get up and revealed a mocking smile. Chu Nan, I've seen your 7th round. Chapter 60. Seeing that Chu Nan was actually sent flying with a punch, the audience below the stage cried out in surprise. This was the martial arts competition held by West Cloud Planet. The majority of the audience was naturally from the Earth Federation. No matter how one looked at it, Chu Nan's strength was much weaker than Saha from the kingdom of Kexley. However, Chu Nan was still a young martial artist from the Earth Federation, so the audience would naturally support him without any hesitation. Even if not many people hoped that Chu Nan could create a miracle and defeat Saha and enter the finals, it would be too shameful to be sent flying with a punch like this. However, the difference in strength was obvious. No matter how unwilling they were, there was nothing they could do. The students of the West Cloud Academy below the stage had originally prepared their emotions. As soon as Chu Nan and Saha fought, they were prepared to cheer for him. However, before they could finish cheering, they saw Chu Nan being sent flying and forcefully swallowed the second half of their sentence. Everyone blankly looked at Chu Nan, who was struggling to get up from the ground with dejected expressions. Could it be that Chu Nan, the last hope of West Cloud Academy, would be unable to pass the last round in the end? On the stage, Saha still maintained his mocking smile. He watched as Chu Nan slowly got up and continued, "I'm different from my junior brother. No matter what opponent I encounter, I will treat it seriously and give it my all. Therefore, I've carefully studied you before this competition." Chu Nan took a deep breath and circulated his internal breath around his body. After confirming that he did not receive any internal injuries, he felt relieved and raised his head to look at Saha. "What's the result of the research?" "Result?" Saha smiled lightly. "The result is, Chu Nan, your true strength is far stronger than what you appear to be. In fact, you're clearly only a low-level overlord body martial artist, but you can casually use your internal breath in battle. Your 7th round opponent, that fool from the Fezan Autonomous Region, was sent flying off the stage because he did not know this. Am I right?" Chu Nan frowned slightly. Saha was right. The reason why he could easily defeat Chloe in the 7th round was completely because he did not know him well and underestimated him too much. However, this Saha was probably stronger than Chloe now, and he did not underestimate his opponent at all. He actually valued his completely unknown opponent so much and studied him deeply. Then, it was impossible for him to use this to win. Speaking of which, not only did Saha not underestimate his opponent, Chu Nan had also underestimated his opponent. He took a deep breath and ignored Saha's question. Instead, he seriously sized up this opponent again. Even if this guy was stronger than Chloe, it was impossible for him to be much stronger. He was at most a low-level internal breath martial artist. Chloe was sent flying by his punch, but Saha received it firmly and was not injured at all. Apart from Saha not underestimating his opponent and being prepared, the cultivation method that Saha cultivated must be very special. Otherwise, even if an internal breath martial artist could casually mobilize his internal breath protector, the force of Chu Nan's punch that had fused with his internal breath was as high as 758.682131 kilograms. It was impossible for ordinary low-level internal breath martial artists to forcefully endure it. When he thought of this, Chu Nan did not waste any time. He adjusted his breathing slightly and took a large step forward before punching Saha. The mockery in Saha's smile became deeper. As expected, he did not dodge and similarly threw a punch at Chu Nan. Bang! Chu Nan's punch struck Saha's left chest without any obstruction, and it was slightly lower than the previous spot. However, just like before, he felt as if he had struck an extremely hard rock, and his fist hurt from the powerful recoil. At this moment, Saha had already thrown a punch. Chu Nan was already prepared this time and raised his left arm to block. Bang! Chu Nan was struck in the left arm by this punch. The powerful impact that surged out from Saha's fist caused his body to fall back and he rolled a few times on the ground. Then, he propped himself up with his palm and flipped around. The audience below the stage cried out in surprise again, but their voices were still lower than before. Chu Nan had only exchanged 2 moves with Saha, but he had already rolled and crawled on the ground twice. It was really ugly. On the stage, Chu Nan's expression did not change and he heaved a sigh of relief. Although the force of Saha's punch was as high as 816.836293 kilograms, preventing him from resisting it with his physical body alone, and he could only rely on his rolling to deflect the force, it looked extremely ugly. However, from the data of the 2 exchanges, this Saha's strength was probably only at the level of a low-level internal breath martial artist, and it did not exceed much. The only thing that made Chu Nan feel troubled was the special defensive cultivation method he had. It made the punch that he had fused with his internal breath unable to cause any real damage to him. "What? You don't dare to attack?" Seeing that Chu Nan had fallen silent, Saha hooked his index finger at him and his expression revealed dense disdain. Seeing his appearance, Chu Nan could not help but laugh. When this Saha was below the stage, he seemed to be very humble and polite, causing others to think that his personality was completely different from his junior brother. Now, on the stage, he immediately revealed his true nature, but he was no different from Marok. Chu Nan shook his head and quickly circulated the 9 revolutions technique before punching Saha again. Saha retaliated with a punch without holding back. Bang! Chu Nan's punch struck the center of Saha's left chest. At the same time, his internal breath happened to circulate through the meridians in his body twice to complete the second revolution internal breath. The internal breath attached to his fist was clearly much higher than the previous punch, and the force behind it actually exceeded 800 kilograms. Saha's body shook slightly, but he did not have any other reaction and easily received Chu Nan's punch. In order to dodge his counterattack, Chu Nan had no choice but to turn around in an extremely awkward posture and retreat miserably. Chu Nan, my research on you is indeed correct. Saha still did not pursue. Instead, he stood on the spot and looked at Chu Nan with interest. You're indeed a very special opponent. Your body is clearly still in a low-level overlord body state, but you can unleash an attack that's close to an initial stage internal breath realm martial artist. I'm very curious, how did you do it? Chu Nan silently circulated the 9 revolutions technique and his internal breath circulated in his body for a cycle to confirm that his previous experiment in martial soul was fine. With the mere addition of the second revolution internal breath, it would not pose a huge burden to his current physical and meridians, and he would not be injured. He looked at Saha and asked with a smile, why don't you tell me what's special about the internal breath cultivation method you cultivate so that you can receive my fist head-on? Saha laughed loudly, if you want to know the name, I can tell you. The cultivation method I cultivate is the Black Rock Turtle Breath. This is the internal cultivation method that has been evaluated as an A-rank cultivation method. There are only a few in your Earth Federation. Hearing this, Chu Nan and the audience were silent. The time that the Earth Federation had joined the Milky Way was too short. In terms of martial arts inheritance, they had accumulated too little compared to the older countries of the Milky Way. The difference was extremely great. An A-rank internal breath cultivation method could not be considered the top-notch cultivation method, but there were indeed not many in the entire Earth Federation. The contempt for the Earth Federation was obvious from Saha's tone, but neither Chu Nan nor the audience of the Earth Federation could refute. Chu Nan was silent for a moment. Without saying anything, he took a step forward and threw another punch. Bang! To be continued. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an update. Check out the playlist to catch up on the rest of the series. I'll be back with the next part soon, stay tuned.